Alan Carter yawned as he stared at the computer screen. Another late night at the Arecibo Observatory. The stars twinkled on his monitor as data streamed in from the vast radio telescope. He reached for his coffee cup, found it empty, and sighed. Then he saw it, a blip, then another, and another. He sat up straight, suddenly wide awake. He adjusted the settings, ran the scan again. The coffee cup clattered to the floor, forgotten. This can't be right, he whispered to the empty room. The objects were massive, moving in formation, and definitely not asteroids. They were slowing down as they approached Earth orbit. Whatever they were coming here on purpose. Alan's fingers trembled as he picked up the phone. This was the call no astronomer ever expected to make. "Sir, this is Dr. Carter at Arecibo. I need to speak with the director immediately." "Yes, I know what time it is. This can't wait until morning." Within hours, the discovery moved up the chain of command. The president was woken at 3 a.m. By dawn, every major government on Earth knew we were no longer alone in the universe. At the Pentagon, Colonel Susan Miller watched the satellite feed with narrowed eyes. 15 ships, each nearly a mile long, had taken position around Earth. They formed a perfect pattern that no human fleet could achieve. "What are their capabilities?" she asked the room full of military officials and scientists. A man with disheveled hair and rumpled clothes stood up. "We can't be sure, but based on their propulsion systems alone, they could probably turn our cities to glass if they wanted to." This was Dr. Frank Howard, called in from MIT, where he had been developing quantum computing systems. "Then why haven't they?" Susan asked. Frank shrugged. "Maybe they're still deciding if we're worth the trouble." The president appeared on the screen at the front of the room. His face was gray with lack of sleep. "Ladies and gentlemen, I've spoken with the other world leaders. We've agreed that a unified response is our only option. Colonel Miller, you'll head our crisis team." Susan nodded sharply. "Yes, sir. Dr. Howard, you'll be her scientific advisor. We need to understand what we're dealing with here." Frank nodded, pushing his glasses up his nose. "I'll need access to all our quantum computing resources. You'll have whatever you need, just find me something we can use." The screen went dark. The room buzzed with urgent conversation. Susan turned to Frank. "You really think we stand a chance against whoever they are?" Frank smiled grimly. "The universe is full of surprises. So are we." At NASA headquarters, Alan Carter watched the radar screens with dozens of other scientists and military personnel. The alien ships hadn't moved since taking position 6 hours ago. "Why aren't they doing anything?" someone whispered. As if in answer, every electronic device on Earth flickered at once. TVs, radios, phones, computers, all showed the same image. A reptilian face with vertical pupils and scaled skin, the color of burnished copper. The creature spoke, its voice deep and vibrating with authority. "Primitive species of Earth. We are the Draconian Empire. We have claimed 70% of this galaxy. Your world will now be assessed for value. Prepare for inspection and classification. Resistance is futile." The message repeated in every language on Earth, and the screens returned to normal. Panic spread across the globe. People fled cities, some prayed, others looted. Military forces worldwide went to high alert. In the White House Situation Room, Susan Miller watched the chaos unfold on multiple screens. "We need to respond," she said. "Show them we're not just sitting here waiting to be conquered." The Joint Chiefs of Staff looked uncertain. "With what? Our most advanced weapons would be like throwing rocks at a tank." Frank Howard, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "I think we should talk to them." Everyone stared at him. "Talk to them?" General Paul Watson scoffed. "While they're deciding whether to wipe us out?" "Yes," Frank said calmly. "They could have destroyed us already. They haven't. That means they want something, or they're curious about something. Either way, talking buys us time." Susan considered this. "He's right. If they wanted us dead, we'd be dead already." The president nodded slowly. "How do we establish communication?" They're monitoring all our broadcasts, Frank said. We just need to send a message on all frequencies. Within an hour, they were ready. The president would deliver humanity's first official response to an alien civilization. As the world watched, he spoke clearly and with dignity. To the representatives of the Draconian Empire, we, the people of Earth, acknowledge your presence and request peaceful dialogue. We are prepared to send representatives to discuss matters of mutual interest. For several tense minutes, there was no response. Then every screen flickered again. The same reptilian face appeared. Your request is granted. We will permit 3 representatives to board our command vessel for initial assessment. Coordinates for shuttle approach will follow. You have 6 Earth hours to comply. Susan Miller was immediately chosen as one of the representatives. Her military background and quick thinking made her the obvious choice to assess any threats. Frank Howard was selected next. They needed someone who could understand the alien technology and possibly find weaknesses. The third choice was more difficult. Eventually, they settled on Eric Thompson, a veteran UN ambassador known for his calm demeanor in crisis situations. As they prepared for the mission, small Draconian ships began descending to various points around the globe. They appeared to be taking samples of air, water, and soil. They scanned buildings and occasionally picked up animals or plants before returning to the fleet. They're cataloging us, Frank observed, like scientists studying a new ecosystem. Susan checked her sidearm, though she had been instructed not to bring it to the meeting. Or like farmers assessing livestock. In a private room, Susan, Frank, and Eric received their final briefing. Your job is to learn as much as possible about their intentions and capabilities, the president told them. Appear cooperative, but give away nothing vital. Remember, the future of our species may depend on what happens in the next few hours. As they walked toward the waiting helicopter that would take them to the launch site, Frank looked up at the massive ships visible even in daylight, hovering silently above Earth. You know, he said quietly to Susan, in all the stories about first contact, I never imagined it would feel this terrifying. Susan's face was grim. This isn't a story, Frank, and we're not going up there to make friends. No, Frank agreed, his mind already racing with calculations and possibilities. We're going up there to find a way to survive. The helicopter blades, word to life, drowning out further conversation. As they lifted off, all 3 humans shared the same thought. They might be the last hope for a planet that had just discovered it was very, very far from alone in the universe. The shuttle rose through the atmosphere, carrying Susan, Frank, and Eric toward the massive Draconian mothership. Through the window, Earth looked peaceful and blue, giving no hint of the panic spreading across its surface. Beautiful, isn't it? Eric said softly. I've always wanted to see it from space. Focus, Ambassador, Susan replied. We're not tourists. Frank was busy with a small device taking readings of the alien ships. Their energy output is off the charts. I've never seen anything like it. As they approached the largest ship, a beam of light captured their shuttle, guiding it toward an opening in the massive hull. The shuttle entered automatically, settling onto the floor of a vast hangar bay that could have held a dozen aircraft carriers. Remember, Susan said as they prepared to exit, we reveal nothing about our military capabilities. We appear respectful, but not submissive. Eric nodded. And we learn everything we can about their intentions. The shuttle door opened with a hiss. The air smelled strange, not unpleasant, but alien, with hints of something like cinnamon and ozone. 3 Draconians waited for them. They stood nearly 9 feet tall with powerful bodies covered in copper-colored scales. Their faces were reptilian but with expressions that seemed unnervingly intelligent. They wore what appeared to be armor made from some black material that shifted slightly, as if alive. Greetings, Earth representatives, the middle one said. Its mouth moved differently than the words they heard, suggesting some kind of translation technology. I am Sub-Commander Vex. You will follow me to Commander Skarath. The humans exchanged glances and followed. The corridors were huge and curved, with strange symbols glowing on the walls. Other Draconians passed them, some giving curious glances at the small humans. Their technology, Frank whispered to Susan. It's integrated with biological components. I think their ships are partly alive. Silence, Vex commanded without turning around. You will speak only when addressed by Commander Scarath. They entered a circular chamber with a domed ceiling, showing what looked like a real-time map of the solar system. At the center stood a Draconian larger than the others, with scales that shimmered with hints of gold. A scar ran down one side of its face, and its eyes were a piercing yellow. I am Commander Scarath of the 17th Fleet of the Draconian Empire, it said, its voice rumbling through the room. You stand before me as representatives of Earth. You may introduce yourselves. Eric stepped forward. I am Ambassador Eric Thompson of the United Nations. These are Colonel Susan Miller and Dr. Frank Howard. We come seeking peaceful dialogue. Scarath made a sound that might have been laughter. Peace is earned, not given. Your world has been marked for assessment. This process has already begun. What exactly does this assessment involve? Susan asked. We evaluate primitive worlds for their use to the Empire, Scarath replied. Some become protectorates, providing resources. Some are colonized. Some are cleansed for terraforming. The threat was clear. Frank spoke up, hoping to divert the conversation. Your technology is remarkable. The integration of biological and mechanical systems is far beyond our capabilities. Scarath seemed pleased by the compliment. Of course. The Draconian Empire has existed for 50,000 of your years. We have conquered 70% of this galaxy. Your species has barely left its atmosphere. Yet you find us worth studying, Frank noted. That suggests we have something of interest. Scarath's eyes narrowed. Perhaps. Our initial scans detected unusual energy patterns from your particle accelerators. Few primitive species develop. Quantum science before space travel. Frank felt a surge of hope. Their interest in Earth's quantum physics might be something they could use. You have 48 of your hours, Scarath suddenly announced. Prove your species' value to the Empire. If you fail, this world will be classified as Resource Grade 3, suitable only for mining and biological harvesting. Susan stepped forward. And if we succeed? Then perhaps Protectorate status. You would serve the Empire, but your species would survive. Eric, ever the diplomat, bowed slightly. We appreciate this opportunity, Commander. May we ask what criteria will be used for this evaluation? Scarath waved a clawed hand dismissively. Sub-Commander Vex will provide details. You are dismissed. As they were led from the chamber, Frank whispered to Susan. Did you notice? When we mentioned quantum physics, his pupils changed shape. I think we've found something important. Back in a smaller room, Vex activated a holographic display showing Earth with various points marked in red. These locations will be visited by assessment teams. Your governments must provide access. Any resistance will be noted as hostile intent. What exactly are you looking for? Susan asked. Resources, technology, cultural data. Vex's voice was flat. Most importantly, we seek any indication that your species might become a threat to the Empire in the future. A threat? Eric asked. Surely you can see we're far behind your development. Vex's expression changed slightly. Even hatchlings can grow teeth, Ambassador. The Empire has learned caution through experience. Frank was studying the hologram. These locations, they're all places with advanced scientific research facilities. Correct, Dr. Howard. Your quantum research is unusual for a species at your development stage. It requires further study. After more questions yielded little information, they were returned to their shuttle with instructions to prepare Earth for the assessment teams. As they flew back to Earth, Susan turned to Frank. You seemed interested in their reaction to quantum physics. Why? Frank's eyes were bright with excitement. When I mentioned it, I was running a scan with this. He held up his small device. Their systems showed a micro-fluctuation. I think their technology has trouble processing quantum randomness. How does that help us? Eric asked. Quantum computing relies on probability states, things that can be multiple values simultaneously. From their reaction, I'm guessing Draconian systems are powerful but linear. They may not handle true randomness well. Susan looked skeptical. So what? We can't fight them with random numbers. Maybe we can, Frank said thoughtfully. In computer terms, the right kind of logical paradox can crash even the most advanced system if it can't handle quantum states. As they re-entered Earth's atmosphere, they could see Draconian scout ships descending toward major cities. Time was running out. I need access to every quantum computer we have, Frank said urgently, and I need to talk to Olivia Martinez at the Quantum Logic Lab immediately. Who's she? Susan asked. The one person who might help us create a weapon these lizards have never seen before. Frank looked out at the alien ships hovering over Earth. A weapon made of pure paradox. The shuttle landed at Andrews Air Force Base, where a crowd of military and government officials waited anxiously for news. As they stepped out, Susan took one last look at the sky where the massive ships loomed. Do you really think we can beat them with a math problem? She asked Frank quietly. He smiled grimly. They've conquered 70% of the galaxy with brute force and superior technology. But I'm betting they've never encountered human creativity. And that might just be the one thing they don't know how to fight. Frank Howard paced nervously in the basement lab of the Pentagon. Screens around him showed Draconian scout ships landing in cities across the world. People were running from the alien visitors despite government orders to stay calm. They're everywhere, Susan Miller said, watching the screens with a grim expression. Paris, Tokyo, Moscow, Cairo, and they're all focusing on research centers, Frank added, just like Vex said they would. The door opened and a woman with dark curly hair rushed in, carrying a laptop. Sorry I'm late. Military blockades everywhere. She set down her computer and extended her hand to Susan. Olivia Martinez, I'm told you need my help with quantum computing. Susan shook her hand. Colonel Susan Miller. And yes, we need everything you've got. Frank quickly explained their encounter with the Draconians and his theory about their vulnerability to quantum randomness. Olivia listened carefully, then nodded. It makes sense. Advanced as they are, if they evolved with linear computing systems, true quantum states might be like trying to divide by zero for them. Can we use that? Susan asked. Maybe. Olivia opened her laptop. We've been developing quantum encryption that uses superposition states, where data exists in multiple states simultaneously. Even our most powerful computers struggle with it. Frank snapped his fingers. That's it. If we create a massive quantum paradox and somehow get it into their systems, it could cause widespread failures, Olivia finished. But how do we deliver? We can't just email a virus to an alien spaceship. Susan's phone buzzed. She answered it, listened briefly, then turned to the others with a worried expression. We have a problem. A Draconian scout ship was just shot down over Russian airspace. Fighter jets engaged when it approached a nuclear facility. This is bad, Frank said. Skarath won't tolerate resistance. As if confirming his words, all screens in the room suddenly showed Commander Skarath's reptilian face. People of Earth, the alien commander said, his voice cold with anger. One of our assessment vessels has been attacked. This violation will not be tolerated. Any further resistance will result in immediate punitive action from orbit. To demonstrate our resolve, the image changed to show a small, uninhabited island in the Pacific. A beam of light shot down from one of the massive ships in orbit. When it touched the island, the entire landmass simply disappeared, leaving only boiling seawater. You now have 24 hours remaining to prove your value, Skarath continued. Use them wisely. The screens returned to normal, leaving the room in stunned silence. They just erased an island, Olivia whispered. Which means we need to work faster, Frank said, turning back to the computers. For the next few hours, Frank and Olivia worked frantically to develop what they called a quantum logic bomb, a program that would create cascading paradoxes in any system that tried to process it. Susan coordinated with military and intelligence agencies around the world, ensuring that no one else would attack the Draconians while simultaneously preparing for the worst. A young man with spiky blonde hair was brought in by security. Kevin Rogers, he introduced himself with a nervous smile. Former hacker, current patriot. I'm told you need someone who can slip past sophisticated defenses. Susan nodded. We need to understand how the Draconians communicate between ships. If we're going to upload this virus, we need access to their network. Kevin set up his equipment. I've been monitoring their transmissions since they arrived. They use some kind of quantum entanglement for instant communication, but there are regular data bursts on frequencies we can detect. Can you get into those? Frank asked. Kevin cracked his knuckles. No system is perfect. Even alien ones have back doors if you know where to look. As they worked, reports came in from around the world. The Draconian assessment teams were systematically downloading data from research centers, taking samples of technology, and occasionally abducting humans for brief examinations before returning them, unharmed but shaken. They're thorough, Susan observed, like scientists cataloging a new species, or butchers inspecting livestock, Eric Thompson said as he entered the room. The ambassador looked tired but determined. I've been in constant communication with the UN. Every nation is cooperating now. No one wants another demonstration like that island. Frank and Olivia finally looked up from their work with exhausted but triumphant expressions. We've got it, Frank announced. A quantum logic bomb that should create unsolvable paradoxes in their systems. And I've found our way in, Kevin added. Their ships are sending regular update bursts to the mothership. If we can piggyback on one of those transmissions, we can get our package into their central network. Susan looked skeptical. And they won't detect it? That's the beauty of it, Olivia explained. The quantum states in our program will appear as normal data until they're actually processed, like a logical Trojan horse. But we need a way to deliver it, Frank said. They'll be suspicious of any digital transmission from us. Eric rubbed his chin thoughtfully. Not if it's part of our response to their ultimatum. Skarath demanded proof of our value to the Empire. What if we offer a demonstration of our quantum research as that proof? A gift hiding a weapon, Susan nodded slowly. It could work. I'll need to go back up there, Eric said. Present it personally as a diplomatic offering. Too risky, Susan argued. We don't have a choice, Eric insisted. They're expecting our formal response. This is the only way to make sure they accept our gift and integrate it into their systems. After a tense debate, they finally agreed. The quantum logic bomb was disguised as a demonstration of Earth's most advanced scientific achievements, a peace offering to show humanity's potential value to the Empire. Eric prepared to return to the mothership, carrying a specially designed data crystal containing the Trojan program. Remember, Frank instructed him, make sure they understand this represents our best quantum research. They need to be curious enough to examine it thoroughly. And stay on the mothership as long as possible, Olivia added. We need time for the program to spread through their systems before they detect any problems. What if they realize what we've done? Eric asked quietly. Susan's face was grim. Then we go to Plan B. Which is? Every nuclear missile we have, launched simultaneously at their ships. It won't work, but it'll be a hell of a last stand, as in, Eric boarded the shuttle that would take him back to the Draconian mothership. Frank watched from the window of the lab. Do you think this will actually work? Olivia asked him. Frank sighed. It has to, because if it doesn't, humanity joins the long list of species who weren't clever enough to survive meeting the Draconian Empire. Above them, the massive alien ships continued their silent vigil, weapons ready to reduce Earth's cities to ash at the first sign of serious resistance. 22 hours left, Susan said, looking at her watch. Let's hope these lizards have never heard of a computer virus. Ambassador Eric Thompson stood before Commander Skarath in the massive chamber aboard the Draconian mothership. His heart pounded in his chest, but years of diplomatic training kept his face calm. Commander, on behalf of Earth, I present this data crystal containing our most advanced quantum research, Eric said. holding up a small device that glowed with a soft blue light. We offer it as proof of our species' intellectual potential and scientific value to the Draconian Empire. Skarath's yellow eyes narrowed as he studied the human. Your species destroys one of our scout ships, then offers gifts? Curious behavior. The attack was unauthorized and regrettable, Eric replied smoothly. But perhaps it demonstrates another valuable trait, our unpredictability. We are young as a species, but creative in ways that might benefit the Empire. Skarath made a sound. That might have been a laugh. Unpredictability is rarely considered an asset, Ambassador. Nevertheless, he motioned to Sub-Commander Vex. Analyze their offering. See if it contains anything of value. Vex took the crystal from Eric's hand. I will integrate it into our central database for thorough examination. Eric felt a surge of hope but kept his expression neutral. If you have questions about the quantum principles demonstrated, I would be happy to elaborate. That won't be necessary, Vex replied coldly. Return to your waiting area. You will be informed of our decision regarding your world's classification when the assessment is complete. Back on Earth, in the Pentagon lab, Frank, Olivia, and Kevin watched anxiously as the signal from the data crystal activated. A small green light on Kevin's computer confirmed the connection. It's in, Kevin whispered. They're actually analyzing it. Now we wait, Olivia said, her fingers tapping nervously on the desk. Susan entered the room, her face tense. Any news? Frank nodded. They've accepted the crystal and are examining its contents. If they follow the same protocols they've used for other Earth technology, they'll move it to their central database for thorough analysis. And then, Olivia explained, as they try to process the quantum paradoxes embedded in the data, their systems should begin experiencing failures. Subtle at first, then increasingly severe. How long? Susan asked. Hours, maybe, Kevin replied. Depends on how their systems are structured. Aboard the mothership, Eric sat in a small waiting room, trying to appear relaxed despite the tension coursing through him. Through the viewport, he could see Earth turning slowly below. It looked so small and vulnerable from here. Suddenly the lights flickered, just briefly but enough to make Eric sit up straight. It had begun. In the Draconian command center, Vex stared at his control panel in confusion. Commander, we're experiencing minor fluctuations in the power systems of sectors 3 through 7. Skarath frowned. Cause? Unknown, sir. Diagnostics show no physical damage. Vex's clawed fingers moved across the controls. The fluctuations appear to be originating from the central database. Isolate the affected systems, Skarath ordered. Attempting to, sir, but... Vex stopped mid-sentence as more alerts appeared on his screen. Sir, the navigation systems are now reporting errors, and weapons targeting is showing inconsistencies. Skarath's frown deepened. Could it be the human data we uploaded? Possibly, but our security protocols should have contained any incompatible code. Vex sounded genuinely confused. This is spreading in a manner I've never encountered before. In the Pentagon lab, Kevin grinned as he watched his screen. It's working. Their systems are trying to resolve the quantum paradoxes and failing. Each attempt spreads the problem to connected systems. Frank and Olivia high-fived each other. The beauty of it, Olivia explained to Susan, is that they can't just delete the problematic data. The quantum states exist in multiple conditions, simultaneously. Trying to remove one state just amplifies the others. Like trying to delete only the north pole of a magnet, Frank added. Susan looked skeptical. And this will actually disable their fleet? Not completely, Frank cautioned, but it should cause enough system failures to prevent them from effectively using their weapons or coordinating an attack. Kevin suddenly sat up straighter. Whoa, I just got access to their internal communications. The virus is creating backdoors as their security systems fail. Can you broadcast what's happening back to Earth? Susan asked. Kevin nodded enthusiastically. Give me 10 minutes. Aboard the mothership, chaos was spreading. Draconian officers rushed between control stations as more systems failed. Emergency lights flashed, bathing the command center in pulsing red. Sir, a junior officer called to Scareth. We've lost contact with 6 ships in the fleet. Their systems are going offline one by one. Purge the database, Scareth ordered, his voice tense with barely controlled anger. Erase everything we've downloaded from Earth in the last 24 hours. We've tried, Commander, Vex replied, actual fear showing in his reptilian features. The corruption remains. It's as if the data exists and doesn't exist simultaneously. That's impossible, Scareth growled. Sir, the weapon systems on the mothership are now offline, another officer reported. Targeting computers are showing random coordinates. Scareth turned to a nearby guard. Bring the human ambassador here. Now. Across Earth, people stared in astonishment as their television screens, computers, and phones suddenly showed images from inside the Draconian mothership. Kevin had managed to hack into their visual communication systems and was broadcasting the aliens' confusion to the entire planet. Look at them, someone in Times Square said, as the massive screens showed Draconian officers rushing about in what appeared to be panic. They're not so tough after all. In every major city, crowds began to gather, watching as the seemingly invincible invaders struggled with failing technology. In the command center of the mothership, Eric Thompson was brought. Before an enraged Commander Scareth, what have you done? Scareth demanded, looming over the human ambassador. Eric managed to keep his voice steady. We shared our quantum research as promised. Is there a problem with your systems, Commander? You know very well what you did. Scareth hissed. This is sabotage. Not at all, Eric replied calmly. It's simply quantum physics. Perhaps your systems aren't equipped to process multiple probability states simultaneously. It's quite fundamental to our understanding of reality. Before Scareth could respond, a junior officer rushed in. Commander, Lieutenant Drex on the assault. Cruiser is attempting a manual weapons launch against the human city they call Washington. Stop him, Scareth ordered. All weapons are to remain offline until we resolve this crisis. But it was too late. On one of the smaller Draconian ships, an officer driven by fear and anger had bypassed safety protocols to fire upon Earth's capital. The massive energy weapon powered up, targeting systems locked on Washington, D.C. When it fired, however, the energy pulse backfed through the corrupted systems. The assault cruiser erupted in a ball of blue fire that lit up Earth's sky like a new star. The command center fell silent as everyone, human and Draconian alike, watched the destruction of the year. Draconian vessel, now you understand, Eric said quietly. Our quantum logic isn't a weapon in the traditional sense. It's simply incompatible with your technology. The more you fight it, the worse the effects become. Scareth turned to him, yellow eyes blazing, with fury and something new, uncertainty. What do you want, human? The same thing we wanted from the beginning, Eric replied. Peaceful dialogue, as equals. Commander Scareth stood at the viewport of his crippled mothership, watching the debris of the destroyed assault cruiser drift through Earth's orbit. Behind him, his officers worked frantically to contain the spreading system failures. Status report, he demanded, not turning around. Sir, 5 more ships have lost all weapons capabilities, Sub-Commander Vex reported. Navigation systems are failing across the fleet. We cannot initiate faster-than-light travel with these system corruptions. And the purge attempts? Still, unsuccessful, Commander. The quantum data continues to multiply when we try to delete it. Vex sounded both confused and impressed. These humans have created something our systems cannot process. Scareth turned slowly. In 50,000 years, no species has managed to disable a Draconian fleet without firing a single shot. There was something almost like respect in his hoisted on Earth. Colonel Susan Miller stared at the screen showing the disabled Draconian ships. It actually worked, she said softly. Frank nodded, his tired face breaking into a smile. Quantum paradoxes. They can process incredible amounts of data, but they can't handle something being 2 things at once. Like Schrodinger's cat, Olivia added. Both alive and dead until observed. Their systems try to resolve the paradox and end up in an endless loop. Kevin was still typing furiously at his keyboard. I've got access to more of their systems now. Their fleet is basically dead. In the water, or space, I guess. Susan's phone rang. She answered, listened briefly, then turned to the others. The president wants to know our next move. Do we press the advantage? Frank frowned. How? We've disabled their weapons, but we can't destroy their ships. We don't have anything powerful enough. Maybe we don't need to destroy them, Olivia suggested. Maybe now they'll listen. I have an idea, Frank said suddenly. Kevin, can you get me access to their communication systems? Kevin nodded. Already done. What do you need? I need to talk to Ambassador Thompson on the mothership, and I need to get aboard myself. Susan looked alarmed. That's too dangerous. They could take you hostage. It's a risk we have to take, Frank insisted. I need to see their systems up close to understand how the quantum virus is affecting them, and maybe, just maybe, I can offer them a solution. After a tense debate, Susan reluctantly agreed. A shuttle was prepared to take Frank and a small team to the mothership, which was now broadcasting its willingness to receive Earth representatives. As the shuttle approached the massive Draconian vessel, Frank marveled at how quickly things had changed. Just hours ago, these ships had threatened to destroy all human civilization. Now they floated helplessly in orbit, unable to attack or retreat. They were met in the hangar by Eric Thompson, who looked exhausted but triumphant. Dr. Howard, Eric greeted him with a relieved smile. Your quantum virus worked even better than expected. Their entire fleet is paralyzed. How's Scarath taking it? Susan asked as she checked her sidearm. She had insisted on coming along to protect Frank. Surprisingly well, actually, Eric replied. I think he's genuinely impressed. They've conquered thousands of worlds, but none have ever fought back quite like this. They were escorted to the command center where Commander Scarath waited with his senior officers. The Draconian leader's posture was less intimidating now, more thoughtful. Dr. Howard, Scarath greeted him. You are the creator of this quantum weapon, along with Dr. Martinez, Frank nodded toward Olivia, who had also insisted on coming. But it's not a weapon in the traditional sense. It's simply quantum mathematics that your systems cannot process correctly. Fascinating, Scarath admitted. In all our conquests, we have never encountered such a defense. Your primitive appearance is deceptive. We may lack your technology, Frank said, but human thinking embraces paradox and uncertainty. Your systems are powerful but linear. They can't handle quantum superposition, something being in multiple states simultaneously. Scarath nodded slowly. And now you have come to negotiate. From a position of strength, I note. Actually, Franks said, surprising everyone, I've come to offer a solution to your problem. Even Scarath seemed taken aback. You would help us restore our systems after we threatened your world? Conditionally, Frank replied. We can provide a patch that will allow your systems to function again, enough for you to leave Earth orbit safely, but not enough to restore your weapons capabilities while you're near our planet. Scarath studied the human scientists with new interest. And what do you want in exchange? Susan stepped forward. Recognition of Earth as a sovereign and independent world. Not a protectorate, not a resource planet. A free world that the Draconian Empire will never threaten again. And perhaps, Olivia added, a cultural and scientific exchange. There's much we could learn from each other. Scarath was silent for a long moment, considering. Finally, he spoke. In 50,000 years of expansion, the Empire has never retreated. From a world we have targeted, it would be unprecedented. So is having your entire fleet disabled by a species you considered primitive, Frank pointed out. A sound like rough laughter came from Scarath. Indeed, Dr. Howard, you humans have earned a unique distinction today. He straightened to his full intimidating height. Very well. I will declare Earth an independent world of special status, neither to be conquered nor approached without invitation. Eric, ever the diplomat, stepped forward. We accept these terms and offer our assistance in restoring your navigation capabilities. Over the next few hours, Frank and Olivia worked with the Draconian engineers to create a modified patch that would allow the alien fleet to function just enough to leave Earth's solar system. Kevin monitored the process carefully, making sure the Draconians couldn't override the limitations they had built in. As they prepared to leave the mothership, Commander Skarath approached Frank one last time. "Your species is young, but remarkably adaptable," he said. "Perhaps in 1,000 years, when you have spread to the stars, we will meet again as equals." Frank smiled. "I suspect we'll be out there sooner than you think, Commander." "I would expect nothing less," Skarath replied. "The galaxy will be watching Earth with great interest now, the primitive world that defeated the Draconian Empire without firing a shot." 3 days later, Frank, Susan, Olivia, Kevin, and Eric stood on the roof of the Pentagon, watching as the massive Draconian ship slowly moved away from Earth, their engines glowing with restored power. "Do you think they'll keep their word?" Susan asked. "I think they have to," Eric replied. "We've shown them something they've never seen before. They'll want to study us from a safe distance." "And the next alien fleet that visits?" Olivia wondered. Frank smiled as the last ship disappeared into the darkness of space. "I imagine word will spread. Earth, the small blue planet where the mighty Draconian fleet touched down and never quite managed to leave orbit as planned." Kevin grinned. Humanity for the win. As night fell, they could see stars appearing one by one in the darkening sky. They seemed closer somehow, more accessible than before. "You know," Frank said quietly, "those Draconians did us a favor in a way." "How so?" Susan asked. "Well, before they arrived, we were just starting to look beyond our own world. Now we know what's out there, and that we can hold our own." He looked up at the stars with new determination. "I think it's time we started getting ready for our next visitors, or maybe for our own journey out there." The others nodded in agreement as they contemplated the vast universe that had suddenly become much smaller and much more interesting. Somewhere, in the darkness of space, the Draconian fleet limped home, carrying with them an unprecedented message: beware the humans of Earth. They may look primitive, but they think in ways that even the mighty Draconian Empire cannot comprehend. And that, perhaps, was the most powerful weapon of all.